Hey, we have an amazing Talk About It Tuesday, November 2021 episode, my favorite episode yet. In this episode, we are speaking with Lydia from Pretty Green Lily again, and Markus Letman from We Don't Have Time app on all things COP26. If you don't know what I'm talking about at all, maybe you have a vague understanding what I'm talking about, or you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say COP26, then this episode is definitely for you. First, Lydia will actually break down the concept of COP26 and bring us through the history of all conference of the parties. And then Markus wraps us up with the actual actions that were taken place at COP this year. Very exciting episode and hope you enjoy. Watch, listen, and learn.
Hi, Ashley. It's always great to be here. It's already my second time, and I'm so happy to see you again. So, well, my name is Lydia. I am a last year international politics student in Sofia, Bulgaria, but I come originally from Spain. And my main occupation in the field of environment is actually all about communication. I am the founder of the blog Pretty Green Lily, where I talk about all things sustainable fashion, circular economy, and green politics. And that's more or less what we will be tackling today, a bit of green politics and what is going on in the world right now.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for that amazing intro. Definitely go check out her blog, please. That is such a resource. And I just want to hop right into it. Right now, COP is happening. COP26 is happening as we're speaking. And so that's very exciting, but I don't know if my community knows exactly what it all is. And you did something on Instagram, a post on Instagram, and I'm sure your blog that was just so beautifully written and broke it down so perfectly that I needed to make a podcast out of this. So please, first break down what COP26 really is for our viewers and listeners.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating topic, but it is really complicated. And I get that people may get a bit scared of this kind of topics. So I'm going to be looking down because I took lots of notes just so that I don't get anything wrong. So basically, what is COP? COP, it stands for Conference of the Parties. And we are talking here, we're going to be talking always about United Nations right now. So a conference of the parties is kind of a generic expression that they use in international politics to refer to summits to discuss specific topics. So what they usually do in these summits is discuss the progress of different treaties or conventions, international conventions. In this case, the treaty that we're talking about is about climate, of course, but there are treaties, for example, on biodiversity, on control of chemical weapons, any kind of topic that can be discussed at an international level. So yeah, that's why it is so complicated, because we have to take into account more than 200 countries. So all those countries in this kind of treaties have to be kind of on the same page to see some kind of progress or just to avoid any kind of conflict. So now we're talking about climate. So the treaty that is being discussed right now is called the UNFCCC, and that means UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. This is a very old convention, actually. It is probably older than you and I, Ashley. It was signed in 1992 by 197 countries, and it was defined as something like a treaty to avoid dangerous effects of humanity on the environment. It was a very loose and very generic description for this treaty, but we get the point. We were just trying to avoid doom because we already had some kind of like an idea of what climate change meant. And science was already hinting at that. There were already activists trying to get things done, and there were politicians, political figures trying to change some things at an institutional level as well. So that's where we are right now. What they are doing today, what they started doing yesterday, Monday, November 1st, and they will be doing now for 2 weeks in Glasgow, is checking what progress has been done in this convention. So if we are approaching our goals of not hurting the environment anymore. So that's the part of the COP. Now 26 means that it is the 26th time that they're meeting to discuss this treaty. So it is complicated, but we get the gist of it, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I was listening into something from, here's a little plug for We Don't Have Time, the app. And they're now live streaming most of the convention and having some of their own meetings. But I was listening to their prologue to it, and they said that a lot of things actually end up happening, like treaties, deals, and things happen behind the scenes that no one truly knows that is going on. And sometimes the deal's done before COP is even finished. And so it's truly interesting how these interworkings really work together to make something happen and have a treaty pass or come to some form of agreement, right? And this is another side of it, is like, in a personal opinion, because I know there are so many out there, what success rate do you feel like this COP will be? Or, because like you said, this is the 26th one, and it feels like they make these promises over and over again, and I don't want to overstep or overspeak, but it feels like we time and time again never hit them, and we're making new ones to compensate for the old ones. So in your own personal opinion, where do you see this getting us? Not just in a United States level, but obviously in an international level.
Yeah, actually what you say, it's really interesting because it's not only a political summit, it's also very technical. So I was listening to a podcast that was where a journalist that usually attends COPs was talking about how things actually happen. And he was talking about that everything is a mess. He was saying that everything is a mess all the time. Everyone is talking over everyone else, just everyone watching for their own interests. And then on the last day, the moment that they have to reach an agreement, everyone kind of huddles in the middle, and you have like Germany and the States and England and Italy, like the bigger countries or the more powerful countries, they get in the middle and they say, okay, we're going to do this and this and that. So it's a lot of technical, there's a lot of technical words, a lot of language that we wouldn't understand. So that's, first of all, that's really interesting what you just mentioned. And that is why any kind of agreement is actually very difficult, because it's not only the political interest, but it's also the opportunities that each country really has to reach the goals or any agreement that is made. So this COP is especially challenging for two reasons. The first one is the first in-person COP in 2 years. COVID happened, so it was in the middle from like it took the main stage last year. And also this is the first year when one mechanism that was put into place back in Paris in 2015 with the COP21 is going to be actually put into action, which is called the ratchet mechanism, which is a way to encourage, I don't know if you have heard about it, but it is a mechanism that was put into place to make sure that the ambitions of each individual country are revised every 5 years. So that happened in COP21, this is COP26, 5 years, sorry.
And what is it called again?
Ratchet mechanism, like the ratchet, the tool.
Mechanism.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. I heard of them trying to look into it every 5 years, but I didn't know what they were actually calling it. So that's good.
Yeah. Exactly. And actually what they are revising is called nationally determined contributions, which is basically what each individual country accepts to change, like the efforts that they're willing to make. So as you were saying, there are so many challenges. Is this actually worth it? Is COP actually going to change something? So one thing that we have to take into account is the asymmetry that COP is taking place into, because we have very wealthy countries and we have countries that are right now trying to get on their feet. So we have to ask ourselves this ethical question, let's say, of can a wealthy country demand from a country that is trying to develop their economy and to give their population a decent life? Is it fair for us to ask them to change their ways and to give up fossil fuels completely and to just decarbonize completely when we are not doing it ourselves? So first of all, you have this asymmetry. Wealthy countries are going to be the ones with the loudest voices as well. And also, maybe 15 years ago or even 10 years ago, we were seeing, in wealthy countries, we were not seeing climate change as a reality. We were seeing it as something that would happen to someone, sometime, somewhere else, but not to us. But for example, I don't know if you're familiar with the floods in Germany that happened this year, or like the fires that you had in California. So now we are seeing this reality. So is something going to change even if we see that it's climate change is happening and devastation is happening? That is the main question that everyone is asking themselves. And actually, I have been trying to read a lot and listen to a lot of different opinions. And there's not a consensus, really. People tend to think that this COP is not going to result in a big agreement like Paris did. Like we're not going to have this overwhelming consensus of okay, let's limit global warming at 1.5 degrees and let's decarbonize by 2050. And most people think, and most journalists and political figures think, that there are going to be like smaller agreements, mostly promoted by these bigger countries and wealthier countries, that, by the way, are the countries that are responsible for most of the pollution. Here, actually, countries from the G20, which is the group of the 20 wealthiest, let's say, most powerful economies in the world, are responsible for 80% of greenhouse gas emissions. So yeah, they are going to be the ones with the loudest voices, and they're going to be the ones that probably carry the biggest weight in these discussions. But now the question is, are they actually going to be responsible for the damage that they have been making? Right. If that makes sense. It's a complicated question.
Oh yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And it's also the question of like, are we the ones that are getting that are making the most impact? Are we the ones to even say what should end up happening? Or should it be the ones that are getting impacted?
Exactly.
The frontline communities. And that's kind of, in my opinion, the focus that should be right now, is like, let's get them saying what needs to be done, because they're the ones that are dealing with this issue right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And we all are dealing with this issue right now, but I'm saying the frontline communities that we've impacted personally, with obviously me being in the United States, we're one of the main impactors. So
yeah, exactly. And right now the focus should be put in translating the promises that everyone has been making, really translating that into reality and into action, because there's always this thought on the back of our heads of, are political figures just talking for talking? Do they want our vote, and do they want our money and all that? So it's just translating that into reality, because it is true that there's a lot of hypocrisy behind these kind of summits. For example, I just saw, before we hopped into this call, that 400 private jets have arrived to Glasgow this week for the COP. And that is just mind blowing. That makes zero sense.
I was going to talk to you about that too, is the fact that, we just went through a pandemic. We spent over $3 trillion here in America for that. And like, okay, so why did we not learn anything from that? Whereas we know now we can just zoom in and have a fine conversation. And this is something that I was so baffled with when I read, probably not the same article, but something like that, where it was just talking about the carbon emissions even to do the COP26. And
Yeah.
I was just like, whoa, what is this, does it balance out, is I guess my question too. And this is not something that can be answered, obviously, because we're not sure what the policies are going to be, and we're not quite sure how they're going to pan out right now. But is it even worth it is a huge question on my mind, for sure. Especially when we've learned that communication can be done virtually, and they still decided to fly in on their personal jets. That frustrates me. So these are the things.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I was invited to Edinburgh a couple of weeks ago, another Scottish city, for a pre-COP TED summit, the TED Talks. Like I was there for an entire week, and I was conflicted because of this, because I was like, okay, I just flew 2,000 kilometers here for a talk, like a summit on climate, and there were like 600 people there, and most people were American, and it was like a contradiction. It did feel like a contradiction. So are the results from the COP going to be worth the emissions? And there are so many more contradictions in this area. For example, I learned precisely in Edinburgh at the TED summit that the Paris Agreement doesn't mention fossil fuels. Do you know that? It doesn't mention oil. It doesn't mention coal. It doesn't mention natural gas. It doesn't mention fossil fuels. So like,
are you kidding
how
me?
are you going to tackle? Yeah, there's actually a non-proliferation treaty now going around asking governments to tackle this issue, actually, to address it. Because how are you going to address a problem if you're not acknowledging it? How are you going to fix it if you're not accepting that it exists? So, for example, these kind of contradictions that I cannot understand it, and I think no one can understand it, but it just has to do with this game of interest, who you have to make happy as a government to keep your money, or to, just, it's about lobbies, it's about interests, it's about just a political game and the money game, I guess. Yeah, but wild, isn't it?
It truly is. And it's the saddest thing, because this isn't a game, like I so see your point in how it is a political game on their end and in a general sense, but our people's lives are at stake. And I think that this whole idea of, a few sacrifices to get where we need to go it just needs to fall behind on the wayside, and we need to start putting the people first, and truly be doing what we say we're doing. So that's the biggest thing for me, is just, why can't we see past what we've already been through? It's
yeah, and you see that there are so many promises in the States. For example, now you're talking about the new Green Deal. Yeah, sorry, that is that is like a proposition that it's not into place yet, but like it's something that they want to make happen. Here in Europe, we have a Green Deal that is already working. And for example, we have these promises of, okay, by 2050, we are going to be net zero. And for example, something really big that has happened this week, actually yesterday, is that China pledged to become net zero, so carbon neutral, by 2060, and India by 2070. And actually, this is one of the things that really got my attention, because back in 2015, I want to say, during the Paris COP, 2015, yeah. So Narendra Modi, the president, the prime minister of India, he basically said, look, there's no way that my country is going to become a big and strong economy without using fossil fuels. He said like that, there's no way. And yesterday he said, by 2070, we are pledging to be carbon neutral. Wow. Which is something, actually, like that not sudden change, but that radical change from there's no way that we're giving up fossil fuels to, okay, one day we will give up fossil fuels, means something. Promises are there. For example, there's this other promise that 100 countries are pledging to. I keep calling it promise, but it's like they're like plans, they're agreements. 100 countries that contain 80% or 85% of global forests have pledged to stop deforestation by 2030, so in 9 years. And this includes, for example, Brazil, that like it has the Amazon forest. So like the ideas are there and they're promising. And I call myself a climate optimist, and I want to believe that they're going to happen, and I'm working to make them happen. Like I try to put pressure on my policymakers. I address them, I write them, and I try to educate people and tell them, look, you have to believe that there's a way out and you have to fight for this way out. But sometimes they make it so hard. Seriously.
Well, something that I've been wanting to work on for the Recycle to Riches community actually is an email or a letter that's pre-written that people can write up, and a few of those at a time, and pertaining to their particular area, and connected to the particular representatives that they should be talking to, and then the initiatives that should be in place in that email or letter. So maybe we could work on that together. That'd be really fun.
Yes, I would love to, because I think it's so important to really get involved, but sometimes it's just difficult to find the words, or people just don't want to put the effort, or they don't know what they should be asking for. So it's just doing the hard work so that it's just uniting more voices, right?
Yeah. And that's what we're all about. We just need to communicate, collaborate, and give community education.
Absolutely.
So I just want to hear your personal opinion again on, and this is going to be our last question together, but on the fact that we've pulled out and in through this Paris Agreement.
Yeah.
What do you feel about this? And on the side note, what do you feel about the tweet going around of Biden falling asleep at COP?
Oh my God. Guys, I'm so sorry for America. Yeah, it was truly heartbreaking when seeing that the states decided to withdraw from it when it happened. It was expected. I think already international institutions knew that it was going to happen. I'm actually reading a book written by the former president of Ireland, Mary Robinson, called Climate Justice. It's really well known and it's totally recommended.
I'll try to link it in the bio down below.
Yes, I will give you the full title. It has a longer title. So she was on the first chapter. She was talking about her reaction to Trump withdrawing from the from the Paris Agreement, and she was like, "Yeah, we all knew that if he was elected, he was gonna do that," and it's heartbreaking and it's completely illogical, absolutely, because it follows this approach of America first. And if we want to fight climate change and if we want to do something about the climate emergency, there's no one is first. No one goes first. The global north doesn't go first. No one, like it's everyone has to
Everyone
do their bit.
together.
Every nation, every state has to do their bit. There is no national interest, and it's this ego that we have to forget about, because now also we collectively have to make an effort to regain trust in, for example, in the COP and in United Nations and in international agreements, that they're going to actually do something, and also give this trust to, or even our national governments, that, okay, I trust that you're going to do something in our benefit. So it was a heartbreaking moment, because you just don't want to believe that a strong government is not going to look out for their people or for the world. And actually right now, it's just ridiculous that a person with as much information as the president of the United States would want to withdraw from such a treaty. Because right now we know that the green transition is cheaper than just staying business as usual. Right now, renewable sources of energy have reached historical lows. Right now, just having solar panels is way cheaper than relying on any fossil fuel at all. So we know that that is cheaper, and we also know that avoiding a climate disaster is way cheaper than paying for any effect that climate change is going to have. So massive migrations and just adaptation and all that is going to come afterwards. So it to me doesn't make sense. I don't know if someone can give me an argument to convince me that it was the right decision to make, but I just hope that your government, even if Biden falls asleep during the COP, can do a bit better.
I'm right there with you on that opinion. It was definitely sad to see, but I think, it took into account the fact that the fossil fuel industry still fuels most of our economy. And I'm not defending it by any means. I'm not defending the decision, but that was it. And I want to go back to when you said, we're all in this together. No one comes first. It's true. We are all in this together. But I just want to say first is the impacted communities come first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Number one, because we've done enough damage and it's time to repay where we've taken. And I think that's part of restoring the earth in general, is restoring what we've already taken from it.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, so Lydia, thank you for coming on and blowing our minds as always and giving us incredible information. We're so excited to have Markus here, and he is representing We Don't Have Time. Markus, thank you for joining us, and feel free to introduce yourself.
Well, thanks for having me, Ashley. So my name is Markus Luterman, and I'm an editor and climate communicator at We Don't Have Time. I'm also an author of 11 books, both fiction and nonfiction, and I have a background as a news reporter for various Swedish newspapers and magazines. And yes, so I just for some years, since I think 4 or 5 years back, I really felt that I wanted to devote my time totally to the climate issue. And so I started contacting Ingmar, the CEO of We Don't Have Time, started doing some freelance jobs for them. And since a year back, I'm part of the staff and happy for that.
That's incredible. And kudos for you to just going full-fledged in on this. And we're so happy to have you on board with this mission. Can we just get a little bit more background for the listeners and the watchers about We Don't Have Time, and how it started maybe, and a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so okay. So We Don't Have Time is currently the world's largest review platform for climate solution. It's a kind of trip advisor for the climate, if you like. And we'd also like to see ourselves as a COP26 all year round, because we went to Scotland for the COP, and COP26 was really a place where company leaders, politicians, activists, scientists met up about climate solutions and the way forward. And we'd like to see our platform does work the same way. We have so many change makers from various parts of society on our platform. We have the big CEOs, we have the scientists, activists, politicians, youth, startups, and we have the discussion is ongoing all year round. And we do reach out big nowadays. Through our network, we do have a monthly social media reach of about 50 million. So we really try to help spread solutions, good climate solutions throughout the world. And also our community, they give climate love, climate ideas, and climate warning to companies and organizations to encourage them to step up their climate work.
Yeah, and I was just telling Markus before we hopped on that it's really one of the apps, like you can download the app, but it's one of the first apps that I feel tells the truth, where I can find climate truth and not have to wonder, where's this information coming from and is it real or not? So it really that's why I use the app for information. And I have posted a couple of climate warnings, and I've definitely given a lot of climate love. So I love that aspect as well, that you're allowed to give climate love. And because, most of the time it's all about what's going wrong, but
Yep.
there's so many amazing solutions already out there. And
Yes.
like you said, the app is, we don't have time, we have to focus on the solutions and we have to highlight those. So and what I really love is that you said you would like, we don't have time to even be like COP, where it is that interconnected, and it is that. And the best part about it is it's all online, and you don't have to fly thousands of miles to have the convention and all of that. So it's right on your phone. I do encourage the listeners and the watchers to download We Don't Have Time, because it's such a good platform to have. Speaking on the topic, yes, of course, I will always promote that app. Speaking of We Don't Have Time and COP26, so much went down, but what are some actions that you personally wanted to see? Because obviously this is a personal mission as well, but what you wanted to see happen, and then what overall kind of what the movement wanted to see?
Yeah, so I think everyone who went there was hoping to see a really strong final statements with a lot of binding pledges. It's hard to reach bold and daring agreements when you need to have 197 nations agree on the fine print. On the good side, we did end up having the fossil fuel subsidies in the final statement, which was very, very important. But even if the final agreement felt like it was watered out at the end, the feeling from being there on the floor in the diplomatic zone was that the vast majority of nations are really ready to step up and take action. And we did see some new alliances being born, and we saw some other alliances being expanded, like the Beyond the Oil and Gas Alliance, founded by Costa Rica and Denmark, who got 10 new members. I'm happy to say that my country was one of them. And I think we're going to see more of that, like alliances of the willing, because it's so much easier to come to a mutual understanding or to be bold if you partner up with countries or companies who have come as far as you. But it's also amazing to see all those big companies really stepping up. And we have, from We Don't Have Time, we have partnerships with companies like Ericsson, Volvo, Scania, Logitech, SSAB, And there is good climate action taking place within all these companies. I'm not saying they're perfect, but there is an understanding of the seriousness and the urgency. And I think at the moment what we see is actually that these big corporations are pushing the politicians and not the other way around, which I thought that was the case, but it's not anymore. And you also see business CEO talking about the need for climate action in a way that they would never have been able to do, like just 2-3 years ago. Just 3 years ago, they would have been scared about how is this gonna, how are our shareholders gonna react. But now they just seem to speak out, and it's the new normal to talk about this, and that's encouraging.
Well, that's very encouraging, actually. And the most important thing for me is that individuals are getting heard as well,
Yes.
And I
And
think
that was a big criticism, of course, during the COP, that where are the activists, where are the youth, and I agree on that. We need to have more of a dialogue with everyone involved.
yeah, and maybe it wasn't COP, maybe it's not that, maybe it's a whole nother meeting we have, or another thing that involves individuals only, and we hear from that. But yes, it's very much has to be everyone involved, the individual sector, the corporations, everybody needs to be involved in this conversation, because and especially the ones that are on the front lines that are getting the worst experience, and not even doing anything for the for the reason, the cause, it's not their fault, and they're experiencing it the worst. So yeah, that's where Recycle to Riches tries to really focus on, that the community aspect of this work, where if we can communicate and collaborate and bring community education, that's really where we need the efforts. And that's why I love the app, is because anyone can download it and stay connected and get this information. But as far as what's in back of you, I would like to know a little bit more about this. I know that this number in back of you started at 0 when COP26 started, and now it's this crazy, ridiculous number that I would not even be able to read.
No.
And please explain what the heck is happening with this number.
Yeah, so we went to COP. We sent 7 guys from our team. I was happy to be one of them, and we have a partnership with the Nordic Council of Ministers. So we were able to share their stage. So they had their broadcast during the day, and as soon as they left, we took over. So we did live broadcast for 3 or 4 hours every day, which was quite nerve-wracking and exhausting, but also exhilarating. And of course, we did what we always try to do, like spread and share solution, and have very, very good and encouraging speakers on stage, scientists, CEOs, activists. But this time we also wanted to really, really put a spotlight on the fossil fuel subsidies. So we had a counter on stage, every night, showing the amount of fossil fuel subsidies given out by our world leaders just since the start of COP. So this counter started with the number 0 at 10 o'clock on October 31, and then it just kept ticking up. And the scary thing, it's very good, because subsidy is something that's it's hard to explain, it's hard to understand what is it. So visualizing is a powerful thing. And just after 1 week at the COP, this number had reached $100 billion. And to put that in perspective, that was already more than the amount of money that the rich countries has promised to annually spend on climate funding for developing countries. And after 2 weeks, when the COP ended, the number was twice as high, $200 billion. And still we have all our world leaders saying, how can we find the money? but the money is already there. We're just spending the money on the wrong things. As the American climate delegate John Kerry put it, this is a definition of insanity, and it is. So it's going to be hard to create the change with the speed and the scale that we need, as long as we keep spending more money on destroying the climate than we do on saving it. And that's that's one of the things that we're really keen on, really emphasizing all the time, that it needs to be profitable to save the planet and expensive to destroy it. And at the moment, unfortunately, quite often it's the other way around.
Yeah, right there with you, Markus. It's wild to see that number just keep tacking up. And the question of where's all the money and how can we get subsidies and all of this is constantly on our mind as a nonprofit, to tell you the truth. But if we had that funding, our closed loop communities would already be going up and running.
Yes.
And
yeah, sure.
So, yeah.
And I mean, sometimes you don't even realize that these are subsidies, because none of this number, of course, is not just direct subsidies, it's indirect as well.
Right.
Like this very morning, I read in my local paper that we have a small airport where I live in Örebro, 2 hours west of Stockholm. And we just had a low fares airline coming to our city now, advertising flights from Örebro to London. And this morning, our region apparently has decided to spend 60,000 euros on promoting this airline. So they're using taxpayers' money to promote this low fares airline that is not going to pay for the costs of releasing all this carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So this goes on both a small level and a very large level. And and it's all, why do they're actually paying using my money to pay for the advertisements for this airline. I think that airline could have coped with that. They could have done without us.
Yeah, they can do their own advertising like every other company has to do in the world.
Yeah.
So I just thought of a thing that would be incredible to have is subsidies or funding that is going into the sustainable development goals or something like that we can tack on right above or below that number to see the comparison together. That would be very interesting to see. And that race would be interesting to see.
Yeah, sure.
Getting funded.
So I mean that was part of what we did. And then before and during COP, we were also part of the UNDP campaign, Don't Choose Extinction, with Frankie the Dinosaur. We tried to help spread that as much as we possibly could. And we encouraged all our members in 150 countries to be part of the campaign and to share and spread it further. So we were a small part of that, and we were happy to be that. And also, I think that was quite a good way of visualizing this, because the movie is fun. It's humorous, but it also have the seriousness to it. Like, hey guys, do not choose extinction. At least we had an asteroid. What's your excuse? I think that was a good way of just describing this madness.
Yeah, I love that film. And is it still available to share and everything like that? You're still...
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can find it in our app, of course, and you can just find it in at UNDP, or just Google "Don't Choose Extinction" and you'll find it.
Yeah.
And this video is of course available for everyone to share and spread, and you can actually give it your own personal touch if you want to as well.
Yeah, I really loved that campaign. So please, everyone listening and watching, go share that video and participate. It's incredible what you all are doing. Thank you for the actions that you're doing. One more question, and then we'll wrap everything up. What actions, I know you touched upon this, but what actions were made that you're happy about? Well,
as I mentioned, I think that we did get fossil fuel subsidies in there. which was important. It actually struck me. I was not aware of that fossil fuel has never before been mentioned in one of these COP agreements. It stunned me when I heard that the first time. I thought it was obvious. I thought it was in there from the beginning, but it was not. So it's quite good that we actually mentioned that, you know, one of the main causes of the climate crisis is now mentioned in the agreement. That was important. Then, you know, even though I'm a big fan of digital meetings, We Don't Have Time was actually founded because of that. You know, we need to be able to have this global gathering without everyone going everywhere by through the air. It's just we can meet up in a way that will, you know, save our climate. But it's still, physical meetings should not be underestimated as well. I think it's good for world leaders to meet up, and, you know, before and after meetings, during coffee breaks, during lunches, dinners, you know, you do collaborate, you create new boundaries, and you get to talk to new people. So just, you know, getting people together digitally or physically and getting to talk on climate issues are very, very important. I think that much of what haven't been said yet, what haven't been spoken about officially, will start taking shape in the upcoming month. And as I said earlier, the alliances that was formed and expanded, I think they're going to play a huge role as well. And they might start small, but the more members that they have, the harder it's going to be to not be part of it.
Yep, 100%. Wow, it's amazing to hear. And yeah, when I found out that the fossil fuel subsidies fossil fuel wasn't even mentioned, I was like, okay, well, that needs to be changed. And me and Lydia, in the previous conversation that you hear before this, we actually mentioned that that's not in there. So the solution just got solved. It's in there now. Well, not the full solution, but part of it.
No.
So yes, thank you for joining.
And I really think that if I could just show you, I just saw one of the climate reviews this weekend. I think that this is actually, you know, something that the companies are now focusing on. And so during this weekend on the We Don't Have Time app, I don't know if you can see this, but there was a climate love giving to Volvo Cars for being the first company to introduce an internal carbon dioxide price. So Volvo Cars is introducing an internal price for carbon dioxide to ensure that all future projects are sustainable. And they've set the price at €100, which is also twice as high as the current price of carbon dioxide in the EU's emissions trading. So it's a kind of a statement, and, you know, the first ones to do that. And I also talking about the importance of visualizing this. Now, when you're going to the store looking for a Volvo car, this is going to be visible on the price tag. So, you know, what the hell is this? Carbon dioxide, you know? And there was also a climate love given to a small restaurant in Stockholm. They said, we're going to add, you know, 50 cents if you buy red meat for dinner. We're going to add 50 cents. It's not the cost. The cost is not going to bother anyone. You know, if you pay €20 for a meal, you might as well pay an extra 50 cents. Right. But it's going to be visible on the receipt. I paid 50 cents extra because I had red meat, because I need to pay my carbon debt for that meal. So I think the more you see that, the more that, okay, so there's actually a cost to this product or this service that I haven't been paid before, but that I'm now asked to pay. I think that sends a really important signal, and it's going to create awareness among the people, among the consumers.
Yeah, and this has been done before in several different movements. You know, the organic food movement started this, where it was like, no, we have to show everything that's on and in our food so people understand what's going on. And now in the clothing industry, we have, you know, who made your clothes is such a question of what's going on here. And this is, again, what is this carbon tax that I'm paying? You know, is the question that's going to come up. And yes, it's a next step for solving and moving forward, for sure.
Yeah.
Questioning, what the heck is this and why do I have to pay for it?
Mm.
Oh, if we lowered it, I wouldn't have to pay for it, because we wouldn't even be using it. Maybe we should push towards not using it at all.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's definitely domino effects that we see. And I just want to be clear with everyone listening and every single COP has been important thus far. And we've needed every single one. I'm not saying not to meet. You know, I'm not saying that the global community and leaders shouldn't be physically meeting, because I do agree with you that there's something different when it happens in person. And we saw that through the pandemic, because currently we're only allowed to do Zoom meetings. We're only allowed to meet up with people online, and it's much different connection than when I have an in-person meeting. So I totally understand that physical connection is just so much more powerful, to tell you the truth, but we can do it in other ways throughout the whole year and throughout this whole time. So yeah.
And also, of course, I mean, if you live, you know, Sweden, it's not really next door to Scotland, but we were able to go there by train anyway. Right. So, I mean, you can do it. And you know, we get a lot of work done during that train ride. And we did spend a lot of time together within our crew, which bound us together even more. So it's good. You can do it. Maybe not if you live in the States or in Thailand and you need to go, but there are other means of traveling than flying as well. That sometimes that's needed to be said as well.
Definitely. And I know flying is like the worst of them all. So if you can just choose something other than that, that's a good decision. And I know they do have some carbon offsets for flying. I don't suggest it, only because it makes you feel like, oh, I can fly anytime. I'm offsetting my carbon. But if you have got to get that flight, there are carbon offset options that you can purchase that, you know, helps a little bit, I guess. So yeah. Thank you.
No, that's fine.
Go ahead.
No, we do. I mean, we encourage that as well, but we always see carbon offsetting as the last step. I mean, the first thing that every company needs to do is to halve their emissions before 2030. This is really, really tough for the airline industry. They have to work harder than probably most others. Then they have to try to cut their emissions of their whole value chain. Then with the remaining emissions that are really, really hard to get rid of, okay, offset them, but never use that as an excuse to not lower your own emissions.
Exactly. Wonderfully said, Markus. That is how we're going to end it right there. That's a perfect wrap up. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for joining us on Talk About It Tuesday podcast. And we're so honored to have you representing We Don't Have Time here. So thank you.
Well, we're happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining Talk About It Tuesday for this episode. I hope you watched and listened to our incredible guests. Either way, I know you learned a lot from them today. Thanks again for talking with us. We hope you can join us next year, 2022, for some more collaboration, communication, and community education. Talk About It Tuesday, first year is a wrap.